Pop, what's going on, man?
How you doing, son?
Vibing, man, vibing. A little pre-pod jam session today. Felt good.
Yeah. Rumor has it you were at the spa for hair and makeup this time?
Enjoying that. They get a fresh cut. Got to work on the beard a little bit, but they get a fresh cut this week. Shout out Kristen. She's not listening, but thank you for your hard work. Got to get it done, man. Got to get it done. It's important.
You know it.
It just, thing is, my hair doesn't grow this way. It just grows this way. So you got to just, the nugget's already too big.
Let's try to make sure that people don't click off now.
Can't be adding volume. They're here for the vibes. Man. They're here for the vibes. Guys, you already know what it is. Welcome back to Album Pop Podcast. Please, while you're here, if you've been enjoying, if you've been viewing, hit that subscribe button. We have not gotten – the views have been great, and the number of subscribers we've added has been great, but the percentage needs work. I'll just be honest here, all right? We got to have a sit-down. We got to look at the tape. The percentage needs work. We got about like 90-something% of our viewers are not subscribed. So, guys, if you just hit that subscribe button, it would change the situation for us, largely change our lives. So, please hit that subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content, if you want more stuff. And today is the 2025 offseason objectively correct Dom and Pop wide receiver rankings. Now, Pop stayed up all night grinding tape to do these rankings. We're talking little Commanders before we get into them, but stay tuned. They're coming in about maybe 5-10 minutes. But Pop, outline says vibe check. You already know what it is. It's Commanders vibe check time. How you feeling?
I think when you zoom out a little bit, we've done a bunch of breakdowns in the last couple of weeks. You've gotten the detailed Commanders breakdown. We've gone around the league a little bit, talked free agency. I just think that when you look at the upgrades that we've made, especially on the offensive side of the ball, with Laramie, Tunsil, Debo, Samuel, even Nate Herbig, right? A potential
nasty Nate
beast at a guard, right? I think that there's a lot to be excited about. And I think you talked about it as well. All those year two guys from last year's draft. And we're going to add a first and second round pick. Going to be a lot of draft talk coming up here. We're going to be after this week, we're going to be heading downhill towards draft week. We're only going to be a couple of weeks away. So I feel good. I feel really good. I think we're starting to get some win totals out there. But how are you vibing, son?
I'm vibing good, man. I'm feeling good, like you said. I think the win total thing is fun. Win total's 10.5 right now, which is the highest it's ever been in my lifetime. And no, I didn't research that, but I can feel pretty confident about that fact, that win total is set to 10.5. I feel pretty good.
Gotta be.
So love that. Otherwise, I mean, I'm feeling
You going over or under? You going over or under at this stage? If you had to put some score, of course.
Bet on the boys to lose.
I'm on record of saying I think it's 12 or better. I think we're only uphill from last year.
It's got to be over. Got to be over, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going over. I think it's just definitely the better way to do things there. It's just that's where it's at, man. It's over is definitely how I'm feeling. I just don't want to root for under. It doesn't make sense. And I think 10.5. I think something like 10.5 should be about the floor of what you expect from this team. And the reality of it is, you can say what you want about how we got there. Close games, newsflash. You ever turn on Red Zone at 1 o'clock on a Sunday? Most games in the NFL are close, are coming down to the last couple drives. But you have 12 wins. Finishing under 10.5 would be a disappointment. I mean, 11, you could say the ball bounces a couple different ways. 11 is generally good enough to win a division. But when you have a 12-5 season with the type of season that they had last year, you should be talking about, okay, what does it take to get that number one seed, get home field in the playoffs, win 14 games? What does it take to get those extra couple of wins? Not how do we prevent ourselves from slipping? And I think we've done that in terms of the way we've attacked free agency, the draft, all those types of things. I think it's been a very aggressive approach, which I love. And overall, zoomed out vibes, feeling good. Looking forward to some draft content. Probably coming up pretty soon. That draft is right around the corner, believe it or not. So I'm sure we'll be getting into some draft stuff soon. But these last few weeks of keeping things on the looser side.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you still got concerns about the defense, right? You had some departures, you've had some ads, we've been on all that, but you can be excited about some of these year two guys, right? We talked about it, and the year two guy that you've got to feel great about is Jaden Daniels, and that's why that 10.5 win situation exists. And that there's a lot of talk of we're going to have a year two drop off. I don't expect it at all. I think my man is going to be in the lab. He's going to be working hard. There was an interview I saw with, speaking of wide receiver depth chart, which we'll get into next. There's an interview I saw with Michael Gallup, and he was talking about coming back, and he's talking about how Jaden already hit him up, and they talked about how they're going to need to get together and start working together. And, he already welcomed him to the team. So he's showing that leadership, which you love to see already. So vibes are high. What can we say? They will continue to be until we're given a reason for them not to be.
yes, they were. Yes, they were. So looking at our wide receiver depth chart here, we've got Terry McLaurin, Debo Samuel, Noah Brown, Michael Gallup, Luke McCaffrey, KJ Osborne, and then a couple of guys. They're probably practice squad guys, Mike Strachan and Chris Moore. Not particularly familiar with either of their games, unfortunately. But for me, looking at this, I think currently we are set up for a Luke McCaffrey breakout this year, and I think a lot hinges on Luke McCaffrey becoming a actual contributor. But I love what they've done in bringing back Noah Brown and picking up Michael Gallup, and even a guy like KJ Osborne, who frankly, I don't know what he's got left in the tank, but has been productive at times. Certainly didn't see nothing from him last year when he was in the building, but maybe these guys take some time to get back in shape, especially when they're not playing or have been cut for a while. They clearly must have liked enough of what they saw to bring him back. But I think you start to feel a whole lot different about this offense if Luke McCaffrey can take a big step forward next year.
Yeah, for me, Luke's just a big old question mark. I mean, didn't see a whole lot in year one, to be quite honest. I know they like a lot about him. We'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully we see a real big year two leap. I mean, when you hear about this wide receiver group, obviously you're very excited about Terry and Debo. After that, you wonder if they're still going to add another piece. I mean, if Michael Gallup can return to what he was, could quickly be a great number 3 guy on this team. Noah Brown, I would say, is a serviceable number 3. It was a number 2 last year, so I guess you feel good about bringing him back as a number 3, not a number 2. Debo Samuel's just that Swiss Army knife guy that I think is going to be a heck of a wampin', but they might need to add another piece or 2 here before it's all said and done.
Yeah, and you might see something like that happen late in the draft if you can find some, raw speed that maybe needs some developing or something along those lines. I can definitely see that happening. Or if a guy like Luther Burden slides and is the best player available at 29, I can see something like that happening. But lots of interesting things to get into here with that depth chart, and I think just gonna have to wait and see. But like I said, I think internally they're hinging on a Luke McCaffrey breakout or a big step forward for Luke McCaffrey.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, that would change a lot. I mean, if you got Luke McCaffrey, if you got like prime Jahan Dotson out of Luke McCaffrey, you'd feel pretty good, right? If you got type of year out of Luke, you'd feel great adding him to everything else that's going on. So
Jahan Dotson,
fingers crossed with that. Well, I was just thinking the last time a wide receiver 2 actually produced for this team, which was Dotson several years back before his injuries. But anyways, enough about that stuff. What do you say we get into these wide receiver tier lists, Pop?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we are doing the top 12 because I think there's a pretty clear cutoff after these guys, in my opinion. We're doing the top 12 wide receivers in the NFL, doing a tier list like we did for our quarterback tier list, and I can promise you Jahan Dotson is not on this tier list. So
the Jahan Dotson, I got to tell you, the Jahan Dotson one threw me off.
You don't have to worry about that.
Threw me off. I was trying to think.
Don't have to worry about that.
Same Jahan Dotson. Is there another guy?
Well, Howie Roseman liked Jahan Dotson so much he paid a third round pick for him. So you keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
but I mean, I hope Luke McCaffrey can exceed Jahan Dotson's level.
20
Otherwise,
no,
we're in
not
trouble.
on. Okay, we're gonna hammer on this one. 2022 Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson's rookie year was a very exciting breakout for a young player. Yes or no?
It was all right.
Yes. He
It
had
was all
good
right.
numbers. He played well. I was the first one off of that train. You can check the pot. I was the first one to be okay with that. You were the one on here saying, I don't know about this deal. I feel like we're going to end up getting fleeced here. Da, da, da. So let's be clear on
I'm
that.
not sure about that.
Anyways,
I'm not
check
sure
the
about
tape.
that.
Check the tape.
I might have
Maybe
to.
you be
You're
careful here.
exaggerating my position.
I got an evening to myself here. There might be some editing. There could be some editing that could be done here. I got
I
time to
agree
kill
with your
tonight.
position. I don't think my position was quite that strong supporting
Anyways,
to Jahan. But anyway,
doesn't matter. We spent 32 many minutes talking about Jahan Dotson in 2025. Anyways, let's get into this. So we are doing our wide receiver tier list for 2025. I think this is the objectively correct tier list. I think these are the guys in the order. This is not like the quarterback tier list where we didn't order the tiers. This is the order, in my opinion. These are the guys. And I think it's good stuff, man. I think it's good stuff. So you want to get right into a pop?
oh, it's great. Anytime
All
the
right,
boy comes up with a list, I'm ready.
let's do it. So tier number one, I call this tier the gold jacket tier. These are the guys, I think right now you've got two guys that belong in all-time wide receiver conversations that are in that are in the league right now. And I think these guys that if either one of these guys didn't exist, the other guy would look all that much better. And both LSU products, these are Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Right now I got Chase at one after the year that he had last year. Jefferson right behind him at number two. Um, any argument there, Pop? You think there's anybody else that belongs in the conversation with them?
No, I mean, I wish I could. I looked at these, and I think you're spot on. Those two I think are clearly above the rest of the pack, and the way they're featured in their offenses as well. And they step up and make plays. I mean, Jamar Chase at times can just be like a cheat code.
Yeah,
Just incredible in terms of how he can take a game over and just put up incredible numbers. And Justin Jefferson is. Who do you take between those two?
Chase for me.
See, I go Jefferson. I think he's the more consistently complete player.
Just the raw physical talent for Chase is like Jefferson is such a technician with his routes, and he's just so brilliant. But Jamar Chase is just raw physical talent in combination with. I think he's nearly as technically proficient as Jefferson, if not a hair more. But I'll tell you what, I'd take either one of them in a heartbeat. I'd be just fine with either one of them. Obviously, Jamar Chase, the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, getting like 40 million or something like that. Pretty good stuff. So tier number two, you've got AJ Brown and CD Lamb for me in this tier. And this tier I had as elite. And the way I gap tier one and tier two is the reality of it is neither of these guys, maybe CD Lamb when Dak is healthy, but neither one of these guys' offenses completely revolve around them the way Jace and Jefferson's offenses completely revolve around them. I feel like personally, AJ Brown and maybe CD Lamb, if you put them in those situations, could perform, but we're not talking hypotheticals. We're talking what is reality. And I think these guys are a cut above the next set of guys, but are just not quite that like undisputed gold jacket, just stud top 10 player in the league caliber that the first two guys are.
I think it's spot on. I mean, these guys can be pretty dominant as well, especially AJ. I think
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb, I think at times it's just been rough in Dallas, right? So I think at times he disappears, I'd say. I'm not sure that's always all his fault.
Yeah, it's been inconsistent.
But AJ Brown can take over some games too. And he's been pretty dominant against us, that's for sure.
the thing is with CD Lamb is like you say he disappears, and then you look at his stat line and he goes 7 for 85 and a touchdown, and that was like a quiet day, right?
Yeah.
So he's still, I mean, an elite player. AJ Brown, I think, when you talk about the same way I talked about with Jamar Chase, just the physical tools that guy has is just unfair. And I think, yeah, if I had to put anybody else in that tier one, it would be AJ Brown. But just the passing volume's just not there in Philly for him to have the numbers to justify it. But I think if he was in a more pass first offense, he would be easily talked about among those other two guys. I think the kid's a stud. I'm a huge fan of him. Which brings me to tier number 3, which is undisputed stud wide receiver ones. So these are guys that, you expect you have to game plan for defensively. You got to try and take these guys out of the game because if you just let these guys run around in single coverage, they're going to run you over. You expect these guys to finish towards the top 10 in fantasy football every year. These are guys that are going to put up numbers. They're going to play well. When they get their names called, they're doing great, but they're just not quite in that those other two tiers. It's just like another group down, but still, I mean, we're talking top 12 wide receivers. We're talking all studs, right?
Yep.
But this is the next group for me. And you've got in this group, you've got Terry McLaurin, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Puka Nacua. The only not so sure thing I am about this whole list, and particularly this one player is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think it's like a chicken or the egg conversation with the amount of touches he gets, right? He gets so many touches that his numbers are so high. But it's like, well, does his play demand that amount of touches, or does he get force-fed the ball so much that, his production is so high? It's like a chicken or the egg conversation, but you just can't argue with how productive he is as a whole.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that you could take anything away from him because of that. I mean, if the team's leaning on him that much and he's coming through with it, I'm not going to hold that against him.
Yeah, it's hard to. But you wonder, like, a guy further down this list, like a guy like a Nico Collins or a guy like a Terry McLaurin or something like that, you wonder what it would look like if he got that type of volume. And that's, for Terry McLaurin, is the guy that has the least number of targets out of all these guys by far. But if you look at yards and touchdowns, he's right in there in that conversation with these guys, and his efficiency is just off the charts. And it's just because he's that team player, he's that vibes guy, he's that leadership guy. And there's just, you can say maybe he's not absolutely elite at certain things, but there's nothing that he's not well above average and very good at as a wide receiver. He's a complete package. Maybe he's not, AJ Brown's size, but he's absolutely elite at contested catches and physicality. He blocks off the ball. He's just a fantastic, fantastic football player. Probably the most well-rounded wide receiver, not in that gold jacket tier, in my opinion.
Well, nobody's a bigger Terry McLaurin fan than me. He's one of my favorite all-time Redskins / Commanders ever. And so he's in my top 5 or so for that. I think you nailed it. I mean, he does everything well. He can catch the screen and get yards there. He can go across the middle. He can go deep. I just think he's contested catch. He is elite with regards to, tracking balls and going up and get balls. And I think what impresses me about Terry is not only just what a great dude he is, which he's off the charts in terms of a person, but he works at stuff. Like last year, he had criticism for not being able to sort of finish plays, right? Like he would make the catch and then get caught from behind, or maybe get stopped on maybe what some people might have considered was a softer tackle where he could have finished the play and scored. And then we saw later in the year, we saw him finish some plays. Yeah. We saw him score on those plays. The one short pass where he just took off, down the field and just made the play himself. and didn't get caught, was running away from guys. I think he's just proven that ability to continue to improve, continue to work at it. And it's just that entire package and the consistency that he brings. And, all those touchdown catches towards the end of the year, I'm sure happy he's on our team.
Yeah, me too. I mean, he's a stud, man. And same goes for Puka Nacua. I think he's a fantastic player. I think, I've got Terry at 5. I don't think I'm particularly too mad if you move the order around in this tier list, because I think these guys are all so close in this grouping. But Puka's a stud too. Puka's just there's nothing he's really bad at as a wide receiver. He's so reliable, so physical, just fantastic.
Is he much of a deep threat though? That's the only thing I
over
think
the
with
top
Puka.
for sure.
That's not what you think about with him though.
No, but that's not necessarily what he's being called to do. But definitely gets open deep. I mean, it's the same thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, if you leave the guy in single coverage without safety help, he'll get over the top. It might not be necessarily what he does or his main.
Look, I'm biased. I'm biased, but there's no world at the moment, and I'm not. I know that's not what you're saying, but there's no world in the moment I'm putting Puka above Terry. I like the player. He's really, 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 really good. But I think
crazy good.
But Terry's proven it year over year over year over year with how many different quarterbacks, and the only year he wasn't over 1,000 yards receiving was his rookie year, and I think it was just a few yards short. So
yeah, and that was just a disaster because you had as bad as his quarterback situations have been, that year was the
worst.
Case Keenum, Alex Smith, or no, Smith was out the whole year, but that was the Case Keenum and then 4 games with Dwayne Haskins at the end of the year, which was just a disaster. I think Colt McCoy got some snaps that year.
Well, at risk of making this a Terry love fest, which I don't mind, what you remember about that was Jay Gruden coaching, right? They draft Terry in the 3rd round thinking he's a special teamer.
Yeah.
And then he was so good
in camp,
and OTAs building in the camp. They didn't even play him in the preseason. He got a little nicked, and they wouldn't even play him because they knew what they had was so special.
Yeah.
And that's pretty crazy, right? Right from the jump, they knew how good this kid was. And to put up that rookie year that he did when I don't think anybody would have had him as a starting wide receiver in the NFL coming into his rookie year, much less, one of the best rookies of that class.
Ironically enough, it was, that was the year we drafted Haskins, and it was kind of they got Haskins' favorite deep threat from college to kind of help him acclimate here. And obviously, tragic how that story ended for Haskins, but it brought us Terry McLaurin, and that guy's going top 10 if you redraft that year. So really awesome stuff. What a steal. Yeah, just a great find. Hopefully we can find a receiver like that in the 3rd, 4th round this year. Anyways, into tier 4, which I have as Fringe wide receiver 1. These guys are absolutely the top alpha wide receiver on their team. These guys are super talented. Some of these guys, so certain guys on this list of the rookies, Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors are here because they are rookies. And maybe you could put them a little bit higher, but it's just it's only 1 year conversation. I had told Pop earlier, I think if there's going to be anybody from this list other than A.J. Brown to ascend into that tier 1, I think you look out for it to be Brian Thomas Jr. in the next year or 2 years. I think he's just a monster. There's nothing that guy's bad at. Plays all 3 positions. Talk about a deep threat, just an absolute vertical nightmare. Runs great routes, great hands, reliable. There's nothing that kid's bad at. I'm a big fan of his game. Drake London, great, big body. In no world is he a better wide receiver than Terry McLaurin. I can't stand that conversation, but super talented. And to his credit, also a victim of really bad quarterback situation early in his career. You wonder what Drake London would look like if he was playing for the Bills. You wonder what Drake London would look like if he was playing for the Ravens, something like that. But he's not. So This is where I have him right now. Nico Collins, some injuries last year, didn't get to complete the year, but when he's on the field, he's great. He's a really good football player. He is not this generation's Julio Jones. I saw that on Twitter. I almost threw up. That's just not even remotely true. Julio Jones is not. Julio Jones would be tier one if he was playing right now. Let's be clear about that. It's one of the best receivers to ever play the game. Nico Collins is not that guy. He's a great football player, but he's not that guy. Malik Neighbors, this is another one where it's like his numbers got way overinflated because the Giants stink so bad and we're just dumping the ball off to him on every route. But he was also wide open all the time. You saw what he did against us those couple of games. Stud. And then Devonta Smith. I think he'd be higher on this list if he didn't have A.J. Brown playing opposite him. That's my soliloquy. Give us your take on tier 4, Pop.
I don't have any arguments. I mean, I think it's a well-rounded list here. I think all these guys, I mean, Drake London, I mean, obviously Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors, part of that LSU. Jay Daniels, former teammates, both had great rookie years. They're up-and-comers. Nico, I don't know. You might have been a little hard on him. He's a heck of a player.
He ain't prime Julio Jones.
That's one person's opinion. You got to take it out on Nico.
You could argue that nobody on this list is prime Julio Jones. This is one of the best players to ever play the game. Like, I don't know.
You love you some Julio Jones. I don't have the same Julio Jones passion.
Sentimental for my youth, I guess. But
no arguments. I mean, got to feel good if you're an Eagles fan having Devontae and A.J. Brown on that list. But let's talk a little bit about, if you were going into 2024 and you were doing these rankings, there's some notable omissions from this list.
Yeah.
I think, right? No Tyreek Hill. Now, I know he didn't have such a great year, but Tyreek would have been a guy, if we were going into 2024, that would have been near the top of this list. He was my number one pick because I was advised by my podcast partner to take him number one in fantasy. He let me down. But you don't think Tyreek? You think it's over for Tyreek?
I don't know, man.
Did you consider him while you were doing this list?
I considered him. I don't know. It's like with wide receivers like that. I mean, Tyreek Hill's a great player, right? But no, I don't see him being a top 12 guy next year. I mean, maybe if he's fully healthy and the Dolphins are firing on all cylinders and all that, but I feel like Miami's kind of in no man's land where they're in that tough, like, they're going to win 8 to 10 games, but they're never going to be good enough to take that next step, and you don't know if you're going to tear it down or not. They're in that weird place. You don't even know if Tyreek wants to be in Miami. I don't know, man. Top 12 players in the NFL don't have years like he had last year.
Didn't have a quarterback all that year. I mean, they were just so far out of sync.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one. Now, let me throw a couple other names at you here. What about Garrett Wilson?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not a big Garrett Wilson guy. I think
Garrett Wilson is highly thought of.
I know. I think he's a good player. I think he's maybe a top 20 guy. Guys that, he doesn't make the top 12 for me. I think he would be, if we had another tier down that would be like good weapons, would be tier 5. He'd probably be in that tier with like 8 other dudes. Because I think the reason why I stopped it here is I think once you get past that tier 4, these aren't guys that you're like absolutely terrified of ruining your week. I think he'd be right in that. Is
Garrett at least knocking at the door, kind of asking if there's more room at the party for maybe, one more?
But yeah, I'd have him in the 15 to 20 range. Which I guess he's 3 spots away from knocking at the door for the party. What about for you? Do you think he belongs in this conversation? Would you take anybody off to put Wilson on? Same with Tyreek.
I mean, it's so hard. So with Tyreek, I think he's probably earned his way onto the list only from just
legacy.
every other year, but last year he's been in that cheat code mode. You'd have him at least in tier 2, if not tier 1. So I think that, I want to see if his best years are behind him. I'd like to see that one more year. It's certainly possible. It was a big drop off last year. Sometimes that drop off comes quick. I don't know that I would knock anyone off this list for Garrett Wilson, but I think if you nudged him, if you made it a top 13 or a top 15, and you nudged him in there, and I wouldn't have a big problem there. Maybe we add someone to tier 3. Like who's your most likely? I think you've already told me this, but who's your most likely to move up to tier 3 out of that tier 4 group?
Probably Brian Thomas Jr., but Drake London is the next closest.
So you get Brian Thomas love over Malik. That's interesting.
I think he's a better player than Malik Neighbors.
Wow.
Personally.
We got to hear.
I like Brian Thomas's game better than Malik Neighbors. I think Neighbors is a hell of. I honestly think Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors are Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Like, I think these are two guys that are going to be the top 5 wide receivers in a couple of years. I think they're both elite, incredible talent. I like Brian Thomas's Jr. ability to get open downfield a little bit better. I like his vertical speed on the sideline a little bit better. And his size too. That's the determining factor for me there. I think he's, but I'm like biased because of how big a fan I am of his game. Like, I'm just a Brian Thomas Jr. fan. If he didn't play for Jacksonville, I'd probably get his jersey. But I can't, no disrespect to the Jaguars, but I don't think I can fade a Jacksonville jersey right now. But I'm hoping he comes to DC in a few years. Reunites with his boy. Anybody else thought was omitted?
Well, if I look at sort of top 10, Stephon Diggs was there, but we know Stephon's not going to make the list at this point. What about a Brandon Ayuk? Now, he sat out injured last year.
That's tough.
But if he comes back healthy, where do we put Brandon?
So I think I had Brandon Ayuk probably around like 8 or 9.
Yeah, he was a top 10 guy
going into last year.
Definitely last year.
Then you had the contract dispute, and then he did tear his ACL. He also played bad before he tore his ACL for the few games that he was healthy. Got off to a bad start.
You thought we should give away the farm to trade for this man.
Yeah, he's a good player. I like Brandon Ayuk. That's a good question. I would say, he's probably 13. He's probably 13.
So you got him 13 and Garrett Wilson 14.
Yes. No. Right. I've probably allowed McConkey 14, Garrett Wilson 15. I'm trying to look up if I've forgotten anybody here.
What about Mike Evans?
Mike Evans deserves, if we're talking all time, Mike Evans deserves all the respect you can give him. But I do not think it's hard, man. He's kind of the ageless wonder. He's probably right there. Garrett Wilson might be 16. I might have Devonta Smith 12, Ayuk 13, Mike Evans 14, Ladd McConkey 15, Garrett Wilson 16. Something like that. I don't know. But I'm also biased about McConkey. I'm looking quick just through some of these other guys. I think
there's a lot of great players, right? You got DJ Moore.
Yeah,
from the Bears. So there's
Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
That's a guy that was definitely way higher on the list.
Now I got a trivia question for you.
Love it.
Might be of some interest. Who was number 17 on CBS Sports top 20 wide receivers going into the 2024 NFL season?
I think it was Terry McLaurin, and we lost our minds about that, right?
Terry was 15. A Mr. Deebo Samuel.
Well, there you go.
Let's hope
there you go.
That version of Deebo.
If we get top 17 Deebo Samuel, we're really cooking.
Could happen. It's only a year removed.
I like our chances. You see it all the time across all sports. Guy has a down year in a dysfunctional program, and
So that would be the argument for a Tyreek Hill making it back into one of your top tiers. So it's interesting. It's debatable. Let's hear from everybody in the comments. There's a lot of great wide receivers in this league. That's for sure. That's one thing we do know.
definitely.
I mean, narrowing it down to 12 is a tough job. I'm glad I wasn't the one that had to do that.
Yeah, I just kind of did it one day talking with my friends in a group chat, and I was like, we should make a podcast about this one. So here we are. That's what we're doing.
We did it.
What are you going to do? Anyways, what do you say we wrap this thing up, Pop? It's been a good time.
Wrap it.
All right.
A lot of fun.
Yes, always a great time. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great rest of your day. Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you for another great week, and hail to the Commanders.
Hail.
I'm on your chain, can't complain. You're so loved.